Morning folks, it's a bit of a misty, cold day here in Aberdeenshire in northeast Scotland, and Rosa and I are out getting ready to make some animal moves today. It's the weekend, but it's necessary to do some of these jobs just when we can find the time. Hello geese. So yesterday was a Friday, which is a delivery day for us, and it was the last delivery of the season. So our community supported agriculture veg box scheme ended yesterday after 20 weeks. So a big thank you to all our CSA members for supporting us over those 20 weeks, keeping us employed as your farmers, especially through such a turbulent year as this year has been for many businesses. So big thanks, and while it's sad to see the end of the veg box season, it means Rosa and I can put our feet up for a bit, you're right, and then we can get on with a lot of the jobs that we've been putting on the back boiler while veg box season was on. Working with the animals is a big part of our winter, and you could tell from watching some of the last few vlogs, this was just starting to become more and more prevalent in the vlogs that we are working with the animals. And when we're not in the market garden, which is quite a small window. We've only got a small window before we start having to think about the market garden again, but for now we get to put our energy into the different livestock systems here. So today we're going to be moving, I think, all the different animals that we've got here on the farm. The geese behind me there down in Goosewood, they really need some more grazing, so they're going to get taken over to the market garden. Now that most of the crops have been harvested, we can put them in there. They're going to do a great job, hopefully, at grazing down the pathways, which have got quite overgrown with grass. And then there's the odd bit of crop residue that they can have a nibble at. So we're going to be herding them over to the market garden. We really want to get the sheep, who are down at the bottom of the west field here. We want to get them moved up to what we call the hayfield to do some grazing. Moving the sheep is proving to be quite difficult. We're slowly just sort of piggyback jumping their grazing cell up closer to where we want to get them, because they're proving very difficult to herd. They seem to have more of a scatter instinct than a herding one. The Shetland sheep's being quite a primitive breed. Quite a flighty sheep. So we're going to see how easy it is to get the sheep up there grazing in the hayfield. That should be fun. The chickens are still over at the far side of the Westfield silvopasture. That's going to be a little bit more complicated because we're wanting to break up the hens into a couple of different flocks to be able to deal with the hens that we suspect have got mites or lice. We want to bring some hens up to the alder coppice where the geese have just been, to carry on the job that the geese were doing at grazing down the grass in between the coppice trees, so that in the spring it's easier for us to sow a bit more of a varied blend of grasses and herbs. We can take down this cell, which is where the goats have been. They've done quite a bit of damage to the trees. I don't know if you can make that out, but we kind of expected that, and luckily these are trees that we're going to be felling this year. So yeah, so while Rosa's just finishing up milking the goats, I'm going to grab the battery from this empty cell to take up in readiness for moving the goats up to their new grazing area, and then we'll get on with the rest of the animals.
okay. I mean, these guys are very good at following, considering they're new and they don't even know me that well. So they're really good. Pea's pretty good considering she is still a bit kind of limpy and slow. But it's Mandy that kind of runs off, just goes wanting to eat different trees. And to be fair, we have lots of tempting trees on the journey up here. There's lots of young trees everywhere, so it's, yeah, no wonder. But it's a big difference having 4 goats instead of 2, because say I'm on my own, in an instance I'm on my own, I obviously only have 2 arms, so there's yeah, if goats run off, it's not ideal. So the ideal is that they stay together as a 4, and they just follow me up here. But this is the first time they've been up to the cell. It's the new goats, Hetty and Heather, it's their first time really walking through the west field. So there was a lot of new stuff for them to see, and they didn't really know where to come in. But if I'm looking at it positively, I think that they'll just learn where to come, because they did that with the last cell, and they were just walking up with me excitedly in the morning with no trouble as a 4. So fingers crossed they just have to learn that this cell is the next cell that they go to.
But the plan is to get a whole lot of fencing done so that isn't a problem. We've got a lot of ideas that we've had for quite some time, but as I was saying in the intro, this is now the time that we get to devote to trying to do some of these projects that have always had to be put on the back burner due to the market garden and the veg box business. So we've got plans for lots of fenced laneways and corridors leading to grazing areas, so that it can make moving the goats and also the sheep now a lot easier, especially if you happen to be on your own. But that is still all to be done. Okay, that was a pretty successful move of the goats up to the new grazing area. I'm down where we've got the sheep in quite a small cell. We're still just trying to get them used to who we are and being where they are. And we're trying to move them up the hill here. And like I said, that's proving quite hard because they don't seem to want to follow me too well with the bucket of food. And if you try and kind of herd them, they just scatter. So I think it's a softly approach with them, and Oren isn't yet old enough or trained well enough to be able to help us with that job. Before we move the sheep, we've got to move this goat house, and it's here in sheep cell, not because we put it there, but because the wind put it there. We had some terrible gales the other night, and the goat house started off near that metal gate and blew all the way over to where it is now. So we've got to remove some of the weights and things that I've used to stop it blowing away, and we're going to carry that up to the goats.
I'm just kind of mulching out the weeds around our kind of dead hedge, living hedge combo we've got here. This used to be like just a stock fence here, and we decided to kind of double it up by putting a dead hedge here, which is essentially a collection of branches from trees that we've coppiced, pollarded and pruned. We put some uprights in on one side. We used the actual fence as the other side of this one, so it was a bit experimental, a bit of a hybrid, old and new, and then filled it in with the kind of tree branches. And we've been meaning to do a vlog or a tap tip about building the dead hedges, and we've really enjoyed it. And though we don't always find the time to do as many as we'd like, yeah, this time of year actually it's getting to the point where we might be able to do a few more, so we'll definitely give you some more information on that. But yeah, so this is a dead hedge, and then we decided to add another layer and plant a living hedge in front of it. So this is then even more protected from the goats, who use this calf paddock quite often as it's joined to the byre. So we planted this living hedge in front of it, but as often is the case, you know, we didn't have time this year to weed it. So as you can see from these ones on this side, we've got a mix of things planted here. We've planted various different trees and hedge species such as rose. We've got hazel here, we've got hawthorn, What's that?
Plum.
Oh, got a plum. So anyway, to get to what I'm actually doing now, it's a kind of blend of me being slightly lazy but also wanting to do a job at the same time. Every morning after milking I clean out the byre, and that just involves, you know, new straw and hay and things and water, but there's often kind of just bits of the vegetable waste that I fed them the night before strewn across the floor. The goats won't eat things off of the floor once they've dropped them down there, so I collect that, and I was taking that over to the other side of the farm to the compost. But what I've started doing now is actually using it as a kind of mulch. Essentially I'm just using it to pull down the weeds around each of the trees and just lay the vegetable waste on top. Really I should be cutting these and dropping them probably and then putting this on top, but I'm not, and it's working okay considering the time of year. I think if this was summer I would be chopping them because they're just going to grow back really quickly. But the nice thing about this dead hedge is that especially the rows are really like growing up through the dead hedge, so it's going to be this really like gnarly, thorny, beautiful living dead hedge. It's quite colourful. It actually just looks like I've just dumped a bin everywhere, but that's okay.
Alright, while Rosa is finishing mulching the hedge with cabbage leaves and going and filtering the milk, I'm gonna start preparing the sheep move. Right now these 3 woolly girls are contained in quite a small electric cell. We want to get them from here to there, where we've just taken the goats to. I would love to be able to just take down this fence and they would follow me with a bucket of feed, and they will follow me a little bit. As soon as they start to get an idea that something fishy's going on, they turn tail and go crazy and try and run back to the byre or something. So I think we're going to have to put up a kind of laneway so that we can just push them up, hopefully, even if it freaks them out a little bit. Yeah, you're listening to me. Get them to where we want, and then that should be okay, fingers crossed. So I'm going to go and take down the fencing. We don't have a spare fence at the moment, everything's in use, so I'm going to have to go and take down the electric fencing that the goats were using before we moved them this morning, and use that to make a bit of a corridor to try and get these sheep up to their grazing. Simple as that. Strange scene behind me. We're constantly trying to get the dog used to the cat at the moment. Anyway, we are getting some work done. So managed to get a kind of corridor leading from the current sheep cell up to where we want them. Theory is we pull back this now dividing fence and either lead them or shoo them up this electric laneway. Yeah, and if that doesn't work, we'll just close off this kind of narrow grazing cell and leave them in here, and just, like we've been doing, kind of piggyback moving the fencing up so that they get pushed up there without them realizing it. But we're going to take the dog and the cat inside because that seems to put the sheep off, and then we'll try seeing if we can get them moved. and be a bit confident and do it without a bucket and just try and push them up first. How many times has a smallholder said that before? Alright girls. Try and carry an empty bucket maybe. Come on then. That's it, good girls. Come on. Come on. Come on sheep. Come on sheep. It's alright sheep. Alright. It's okay. It's okay. No, you stay. Great, Rosa's just closed off where they were behind me, and now they're just here. We've only got about 15 meters to go. Need your help? Great, they're going. Yes, they're in. Woohoo! That went really well. That's good.
That's been what, like a week?
I know, trying to think how to get them up into there. Right, they're coming back down. So nice to see them up here finally in what we would consider a proper grazing cell for the sheep. It's been over 2 weeks since we've had them and just been very slowly getting them used to where they are and trying to figure out which is the best way to move them. And like I was saying earlier when Rosa was talking about the difficulties of moving the goats, once we get our laneway systems in place, this should be a lot easier to be able to just open up one grazing cell into the other to move animals such as the sheep, which aren't always going to maybe want to play the game.
Okay, so what next?
Well, I don't know if you've heard the geese chattering behind us while we were trying to do that, so I think it's them we should be moving next. Well, as predicted, that was easy. I like to be confident with those things sometimes. We're just gonna get a fleece on a bed of salad which we can still harvest for home use, just to stop them from nibbling on it. I'm sure they're gonna find lots to eat once they get the idea of where they are. They've been in here before. At the start of the year we had them in electric netting just on the pathways here to be able to eat the grass, but they've never really had the whole run of the market garden before.